Well, hello and welcome to the candy wallpapered upstairs hallway of the dollhouse for another reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Joost Elfers for November 2nd, the day of transformation. And here at the top of the page is a visual representation of the day of transformation. Well, we have us a very apt picture, in my opinion, compared to a lot of the other visual representational images. This one seems pretty on par with the day. Boom! It is a fish that's it's part ukulele, part fish. You know what I'm saying? The ukulele based on that tail fin shaped pegboard with the 4 strings there. So I would say pretty apt. Though there ain't many fish turning into ukuleles. In any event, hey, adequate representation of the day of transformation. Who's to say? You be the judge of that. But hey, not altogether all that important. What is important is it's November 2nd, and it's someone's birthday today. That's right. So with that being said, I want to wish you a happy birthday. That's what's important. But if this video finds you late, I don't know, days, weeks, months, whatever it may be, you're a busy individual, right? Well, I hope you had a happy birthday if that's the case. But that being said, for everyone else who's joining us randomly or more ideally to celebrate, I just want to say hello, welcome, and I hope you enjoy yourself. But before we dive in with the redirect, this is the DykASSt birthday broadcast, so we need to live up to the namesake, all right? And we do that by rolling some dice. That's right. But we roll these dice more importantly for synchronicity's sake. And here we rolled us a 5 and a 2 for a 7. That's right. Now, what is synchronicity, you're probably wondering? Well, it's just you getting out in the world and letting the universe show you it's with you on your path. And you do that by going after these numbers as you see them. It's kind of like a mutually agreed upon waypost, if you like. And the universe will throw this at you to let you know you're on the right path. That's right. Or to chase it down. You go after those numbers when you see them. That being said, you don't have to go with the numbers I rolled you. The intention's there, but you can roll your own. And it's probably advisable you take your own set of dice so you can ascribe directional values to number sets and figure out time limits by which to go in those directions. That being said, once you reach the end of that direction you're going in, the time limit there, well, you stop, compose yourself, you look around, and if you don't see your numbers, well, hey, look for something anomalous. That's right. Maybe you see some guy carrying a fish ukulele down the street. Probably not going to happen, but you know what? Sometimes the day takes on a theme. That's right. Or a wooden fish, maybe. It doesn't have to be the shape of a musical instrument. That being said, hey, that's screaming out being anomalous, isn't it? So you know what? Take your dice, roll them, find out a time limit by which to follow that individual. That's right. And the time it takes you to roll the dice, you get a little bit of a distance in between the two of you, so he doesn't think you're creeping on him if he happens to notice. But let's say he does notice you following him and he gets a little bit perturbed about it. You know what? Just show him this video. That's right. Let him know about synchronicity. That's all I'm doing. You were the anomaly. You know what I'm saying? And I couldn't find my numbers. And he'd say, really? Synchronicity, huh? You wouldn't believe it. You know what? Maybe he joins you on your journey. That's right. You know what? The universe has a way of making these things work out. As long as you're honest with folks up front. I mean, hey, you show them this video. Maybe they don't like it, but you know what? Dollars to donuts, they probably will. And they'll join you and you roll your dice, find out how long to go in that new direction. Or maybe you know what? You ask them where they were going, and that's where you go. That's where you go, because that's where the universe was taking you, I would suspect. In any event, hey, that's the general idea. I think you get the gist. Let's get on with the birthday read, all right? Your month is November. Your day is the 2nd. Your sign is 8 to 11 degrees Scorpio, and your period is Scorpio I specifically, and your quality and element is fixed water. Well, all right, let's dive into it. November 2nd, the day of transformation. Those born on November 2 are usually busy with some kind of transformation. The changes which they affect are both in themselves and in the environment around them. And they are characters on life's stage who change the action of the drama just by their presence, for better or for worse. And more highly developed November 2 people are very much aware of how they impact on their surroundings. But less highly developed people born on this day are often at the mercy of impersonal forces which seem to be acting through them, using them as unconscious instruments, often with alarming results. November 2 people must thus develop a greater awareness of their transformative powers and guide them in a moral direction. Their responsibility toward their family and friends is great in this respect. And for example, sensitive individuals can be powerfully affected by the opinions, actions, and even unspoken wishes of November 2 people. Also, those born on this day sometimes wish to change those situations they see as needing improvement, but may in fact be meddling in areas where they are not at all appreciated. Their capacity to exercise restraint regarding their influence is an indication of their spiritual development, as is their ability to wisely wait and patiently guide from afar the best interests of their mate or children. The transformations wrought by November 2 people can go very far indeed. The structure, direction, and purpose of business organizations or social and religious entities can come under their sway. However, should they fail in the ultimate challenge of transforming themselves, personally, it may all be for naught. November 2 people generally arrive at a crossroads, often around age 28, for Saturn's first Saturn return, in parentheticals it says, 44, Uranus and Saturn opposition, or 56, second Saturn return, when they must drastically redirect the course of their lives. They should be able to effect an internal change, becoming aware of their needs and ever more determined to realize them. Then the chances of them succeeding on their path are great indeed. If they are not able to accomplish the necessary changes inside them, then they will begin to stagnate, eventually growing frustrated, angry, and depressed. November 2 people are often taken up with matters concerning money, sex, and power. And they must be careful not to let such interests gain control of their essential personality. Rather, they should keep things light as much as possible and maintain a sense of play and fun in their lives. And if they assert their powers in the service of tangible human concerns, well, they can make a great contribution to life around them. All right, hey, how about that for a pretty dynamic birthday breakdown? They're saying it was a little bit specific with regard to those time periods with which you start to affect changes, and might have put a little bit of confusion in there. So just to reiterate, it was around the ages of 28, 44, and 56 there. All right, hey, so with that being said, let's dive into some notes. I'd like to provide a little bit of a commentary on what we just read. Examine a few things if you like. So November 2, the day of transformation. Like the title, the reading claims you're usually busy with some kind of transformation. Now, while that seems to be a rather generalized idea, I imagine it could be applied to just about anyone in that regard, to the astronomy naysayers' delight, I suppose. But I have a certain kind of feeling if I or one of those naysays met or knew someone born on this day, we'd have a better understanding for how it was applicable, or the kind of dynamic and highly unique meaning that the reading is probably trying to convey. Though I could be wrong. All right. So with that said, transformation of the individual specifically isn't the first element the reading addresses. More specifically, they discuss your ability to transform your environment, all right, with your very presence, okay, for better or for worse, to the extent you're aware of as much, depending upon your level of development. However that's realized. Now, much like the October 22nd folks who were purported to have otherworldly powers of seduction, the reading discusses the responsibility that comes with your abilities, all right? And while I must confess a lot of this seems rather fictional in its metaphysics, if you like, the veracity of such claims isn't really why I'm here, okay? So also it's much more interesting to examine such things with the idea that it may just be the case. That that to say that the reading warns of meddling with your opinions, actions, and your unspoken desires, or trying to inject your influence in areas that you see needing improvement, but aren't really your concern. They're someone else's, right? And I would agree that the ability to show restraint in such cases would be a fair indicator of not just maturity, but your spiritual development. That's right. Transformation of oneself, however, interestingly, is discussed in terms of crossroads you'll come to at certain ages. That's right. And the pitfalls associated with being unable to become aware of your own needs at these times. But that was pretty interesting they do that. That ain't something they do very often. The benefits, however, sound enticing, as it's claimed that you do affect a change. If you do affect a change, you will be ever more determined to realize it. And the way I read it, it seems like there'll be this ever compounding energy to seek that fulfillment. Whereas the stagnation, anger, and depression, if you don't realize it, that can come from that. Let's see, what else we got here? That said, the reading concludes by advising to not get too carried away with concerns for money, sex, or power, for it could affect your personality in terms of focus on these things as ends unto themselves. So I wholeheartedly agree with focusing on balancing that as much as possible and leaning into seeking that fun life that they mentioned there. But if contribution and benefit isn't an aim of yours, hey, so be it, all right? Everyone's welcome to their own respective desires. That's right. And, you know, not everybody wants to contribute to society or the betterment of humankind. So be it, all right? No judgment, like I said. You know, there's other folks that are going to do that too. That being said, by and large, this day seems like a little bit fictional, all right? They're saying you have like these superhuman powers, but you know what? Who's to say that isn't true? That other day I mentioned, October 22nd, that other person was just like this seduction magnet, and they were able to seduce whoever they wanted, except for people who were balanced. And they found some very interesting dynamics there. They were able to kind of quash some of those so-called powers. This is only the second reading I've come to where that kind of seems to be in line with that. So, you know, take it with a grain of salt, salt to taste, however you like to do it. But if you're born on this day, you probably know exactly what they're talking about. Or you don't, who's to say? But I'm going to take it on faith that you do, and that it speaks to you, and you find it really interesting that somebody else noticed as much. All right, that being said, let's move on to your numbers and your planets. All right, those born on the second of the month are ruled by the number 2 and by the moon. And those ruled by the number 2 often make good co-workers and partners. However, moon influences can also act as a brake on individual initiative and action, producing frustration. And this is augmented by the moon's having strongly reflective and passive tendencies. Combined with the plutonic qualities of Scorpio, the moon can produce powerfully controlling and manipulative emotional states, which can deeply affect the lives of others. All right, they personalize this one a little bit. The Pluto Scorpio rulership comes into this dynamic, and it's just kind of flipped the whole book up on its end to some extent. They can't do the copy-paste job like they do on a lot of the other days there. They're still trying in earnest, but the Pluto has been upending things a little bit. So anyway, what I have to say about your numbers and your planets, let's get into it. Number 2 in the moon for good partner and good coworker dynamic. Passive reflective energy, which may just speak to this transformative trait of yours through indirect influence versus the command of leadership dynamic. A lot of the other moon days say that you make a better partner, coworker, versus a leader. And it's really hard to reconcile that a lot of times based on what happens in the breakdown. Sometimes those folks just read as a clear leader or a manager or some such, and then they say they make a better partner or coworker. Who's to say? Other times it lines right up, but I would think a lot of people don't want to hear that. I make a good leader. Hey, you know what? I tend to drill down on the idea that leadership's overrated. And even if you think you make a good leader, you might just make that much better of a partner or whatever. Or coworker, I think was the other thing. So maybe lean into it and try it out. So that said, they didn't mention that lack of a leadership trait with you. But being that's a common thing with the moon, maybe keep it in mind. That being said, this transformative trait and your indirect influence on the, the environments that you go into, transforming around you just because of your presence, I found that very interesting, and it might just speak more to the moon's influence in that regard. And that's not something I ever put to thought when it came to reading the moon type stuff. In any event, gone on about that for a minute here. So, what else I have to say? It's interesting that and it's interesting, and it came down to your birthday for me to recognize that dynamic I just related. As this entry, I can't generally reconcile many benefits to the moon to dynamics, despite cooking up a few different ideas when the entry does present. That said, the entry relates to the darker side of Pluto, potentially producing an emotionally manipulative state, which would speak to the warning of meddling and further emphasis on your influence in general. All right, and I'd argue, at least that's what I would argue, assuming it applies. Okay, there. You know what? I said more without even having to read it. So we're building up those skills there. When I say we, I mean me. But, it's a collective thing. It's a community. In any event, that's been your numbers and your planets. So let's take us on into your tarot. That's right. One of the more eclectic of the New Age metaphysical ideologies. But hey, we're talking about superpowers. So let's dive into it. Why not? Hey, even if you don't believe in this stuff, and even if it applies to you, doesn't mean we got to take it home and start dealing out the cards to influence our every whim and flight of fancy. But it's your birthday, so let's see what it has to say. All right. Second card of the major arcana is the Priestess, shown seated on her throne, calm and impenetrable. She is a spiritual woman who reveals hidden forces. I'm about to say revels. She reveals hidden forces and secrets, empowering those of us who heed her with that knowledge. Favorable qualities of this card are quietude, intuition, reserve, and discretion. Negative values include secretiveness, mistrust, indifference, and inertia. Secretiveness. I can say it right. All right, what do I have to say about your tarot here? The Priestess, calm, impenetrable, spiritual woman who reveals hidden forces and secrets. The imagery of which seems to speak to this power that you're purported to possess. All right, and you certainly wouldn't want to let anyone know about it for fear of relinquishing said power. But perhaps, all right, perhaps those you trust, maybe. The positives of discretion, reserve, and intuition rather, but negatives of apathy, mistrust, and inertia being you just stagnating, staying in one place. You need a push to get going, right? So wisdom versus the roads to debauchery, I would argue. Using your powers irresponsibly for that money, sex, and power, if you like. Perhaps, anyway. All right, so that being said, that's been your tarot card. Let's move on to your health. All right, your health. November 2 people have the power to influence the course of many of their physical problems or illnesses. For this reason, those born on this day must use introspection as a tool not only to understand themselves, but to influence their internal physical processes. For November 2 people, all eliminative processes and those involving purification are particularly sensitive and at risk. Almost all sexual problems here have a strong psychological component, which can be transformed with learning and patient practice. Rigid diets should be avoided and an attempt made to widen the palate by experimenting with exotic and creative combinations. Weight gain or loss usually surfaces sooner or later as a problem for November 2 people. And for this reason, finding a suitable form of exercise is of great importance. All right, hey, lion's share of the information in the book and astrology as a subject notwithstanding, this has been arguably grounded, all right? All right, let's just move on to the notes. That was a little bit of a note I wrote in there. But let's get into your health here. All right. Speaking to the idea of influencing others, the reading also claims you have the power to influence illness and physical problems within yourself. Again, things seem to be a little bit questionable or fictional in those terms, terms of realism, if you like. and relating introspection to influence your internal processes, which is the first time they've written that in the book, by the way. Then made even the idea of being susceptible to digestive issues and sexual issues being psychological. I mean, it made those things curry a little bit less favor when they lead with kind of more of that fictional type stuff. But you know what? I've heard that people do have the power to influence their body with the power of their mind. And maybe you have that capability a lot easier than most. I was reading the Scorpio II breakdown earlier today. So I got the dates mixed up. And they said they're able to do some of those things too, better than other folks. So, and you're right there on the cusp there. Scorpio 2 happens tomorrow. So maybe you're just right in there, right? Any event, introspection to interfere with internal processes, like I said. I don't know. It doesn't curry as much favor, like I said, being the sexual issues and the psychological, being susceptible to those when it's led with the fictional. But like I said, it's a first in here, and I don't know. Who's to say? It could be the case. But like I said earlier, the lion's share of this stuff is usually pretty well rooted in realism outside of the fact that, it's all rooted in astrology, and a lot of folks are going to naysay about that. But hey, that's okay. So let's get on with your health's been in the can there. Let's move on to some advice. All right. Try to rectify a little bit of my disjointed read there. All right. Change is not always good or desired. Do not act hastily. Find the right time. Listen carefully to the wishes of others and learn to give up in order to get. All right, real quick advice there. Not too bad, though, I would argue. There's a lot of value in that. All right. Let's see. Change is not always good or desired. All right. Not sure why they mention that, but perhaps leading with the assumption it's recommended that you do change, right? Which is what it kind of seems to be, right? But that may be difficult, all right? And perhaps come with some losses, all right? So change is not always good or desired, but those negative things, hey, they happen and they're necessary. You know what? A lot of times people look at change as a good thing, and maybe in the end it is, but there's a lot of hurdles you got to go through in order for that to happen. I think that's what they're trying to say. And if they're not, hey, it's good to consider. I'm glad I arrived at that myself. That's the case. All right, what else we got here? Don't act hastily. Find the right time, I suppose, okay? But just don't stagnate or procrastinate. Remember inertia, right? Always be moving. That's what I'm saying. Even if it just means rolling out of bed and getting in a shower before you roll back into bed. At least you got active, all right? And a lot of times that leads to you doing something else. Find a balance, okay? Sometimes there's an answer to a question, and it comes while taking a break. That's right. But I have to be active with the project. If I put the project on the back burner, say, because of some kind of roadblock I ran into, hoping an answer to that question will pop up, it most certainly never does, because I have to be active with that project in some regard. If I'm taking a break from it, fine. But like I said, if I put it on the back burner, the answers don't come for whatever reason. So yeah, be active. Stay active with things. And like I said, I think the answer to a question comes while taking a break, but not putting it on the back burner. All right, what else we got here? Learn to give up in order to get. Okay. All I had to say about that was to kind of dovetail it into the latter thing. The answer doesn't pop up, take a break. But you know what? Don't let it get behind you, all right? Learn to give up to get, but don't put it on the back burner, all right? Listen to the wishes of others. And all I wrote here was don't meddle, like it said earlier, all right? You may want to, and you've got the influence to change things how you want them to change, but a lot of folks aren't going to appreciate that when and if they do realize you're doing it. And there's not a lot of value in getting what you want by getting other folks to do what you want against their own wishes, right? I mean, you might like it at first, but I don't know. I don't think there's a lot of value in it myself. But hey, I'm not here to judge. That's up to you to figure out. So that's been your advice. And again, a little disjointed, but hey, that's how it goes sometimes. It's been one of those weeks there. So in any event, with your advice having been recorded in the can, as it were, let's take the energy down a bit and move on to your meditation. That's right, your meditation. All right. The pitcher must be emptied before it can be filled anew. All right, hey. Don't know how that applies to you, but once again, the pitcher must be emptied before it can be filled anew. All right, that's your meditation. It's your birthday. I'm going to leave that with you once more. The pitcher must be emptied before it can be filled anew. I'm not going to try to throw some spin on it or interpretation. I don't have one, as it turns out, but if I did, I wouldn't be giving it to you. That's just for you. All right, with your meditation in the can, let's move on to your strengths and your weaknesses. That's right, let's do the work. Oh, let's see what we get here. Your strengths, you're influential, you're powerful, you're adaptable. All right, how about that? Adaptable. Influential, we knew that one. And powerful. Well, we just got to make sure we direct those powers in the right places, all right? You know, if you're a moral individual. Then again, hey, you know what? You don't have to do anything, do you? You don't have to go bad or good. You can stay neutral, any event. Influential, powerful, adaptable. Your weaknesses, though. Can you guess what they are? Oh, let's do the real work here, the heavy lifting, if you like. Hey, you know what we say about that? Change is not always good or desired. That's right. We may not desire this. Your weaknesses, you're smothering, manipulative, and you're heavy. Oh, you're heavy. Not in a weight sense. Somebody else commented on this a few days back. Heavy and just like the energy you bring is a load on folks. That's right. It's heavy in that regard. So any event, psychological weight, if you like, spiritual weight. You got that that superpower being influential. It brings it on. So there you go. That's an interpretation there for you from the individual that left it in the comments. I can't recall. I'll have to let them know that this came up again. Any event, those being your strengths and weaknesses, let's move on to those born on this day. And when we get into those born on this day, we not only get to see who shares your company, what lottery you drew in that regard. I like to segue and take a moment to examine something I find important, and that's figuring out our passions. That's right. A lot of times you get out in the world and meet folks, ask them what they do and if they like it, and a lot of times they don't. And you know what? I think it just simply comes down to the fact that they never had the time to put into work to figure out their passions or what they like to do, more simply. And if they do know what they are, they just don't know how to make them financially viable. Because again, they don't have the time to figure it out. They got to get to work, get that money, but keep the roof over your head, keep the bed sheets fresh, and the food on the table, all of that good stuff. Or you just get into a career and you start going up the ladder and the money starts coming in and it's easy. And you know what? We don't enjoy it, but it gets things done for us. But in any event, I find this the perfect opportunity to not only see who shares your company, but what they did to get their stamp in the book, or get put in the book and their stamp on the cultural zeitgeist, if you like. And, maybe we don't take any kind of inspiration from them at the end of the day, but maybe me just mentioning it and that being the goal. Help you stir up the fire, if you like. So in any event, let's dive into it, okay? Those born on this day. And we start off with Benvenuto Cellini, the Italian Renaissance goldsmith, metal designer, and the sculptor. We have Marie Antoinette, the French queen, wife of Louis the 16th, it looks like? Beheaded as well. We have James J. Polk, the U.S. president and expansionist, the Mexican-American War, and the annexation of California, and much of the Southwest, it says. We have Daniel Boone, the pioneer and legendary backwoodsman. We also have Said Aouita, a Moroccan Olympic gold medalist, a world champion 1,500, 2,000, 3,000, and 5,000 meter runner. We also have Luchino Visconti, an Italian film director of The Damned and Death in Venice. We also have Burt Lancaster, the film actor, Katie McLaughlin, a mime and Los Angeles mime troupe member. We also have Warren G. Harding, U.S. president as well, returned to normalcy after Wilson died in office. We also have Aga Khan III, Muslim ruler, said to be the world's richest man, $34 billion. at least when this book was written back in 1994. We also have Cher Heat, sex report writer, woman's activist. I'm probably saying that wrong. We have Phil Woods, jazz alto saxophonist and a composer. Probably one of the most normal names I've seen here for a saxophonist in the book. They normally have some kind of cool nickname. Who else we got here? Oh, Richard Serra. How about that? A sculptor, famous for his earthworks and his big giant plates of steel that he curves and such. I'm a big fan of his. Jesse Daniel Ames, anti-lynching reformer and a suffragist. Ken Rosewall, Australian tennis champion, won the French and Australian Open at age 18, and two-time U.S. Open winner. And Bunny Berrigan, jazz trumpeter and band leader. We also have Pat Buchanan, presidential candidate, newspaper editorialist, and TV political commentator. We also have Leon Hart, football ends, three-time All-American last lineman to win the Heisman Trophy. All-pro on offense and defense. We have Lucan, or Lucian perhaps, a Latin poet. Johnny Vandermeer, baseball pitcher, and the only pitcher to hurl consecutive no-hitters. You know what? I think some of these records they mention here have been beaten. All right, at least the billionaire one was. This is almost a 30-year-old book, so some things had to change there. What was the thing we said? Change is not always good or desire. That's right. Hey, we found our theme there. It didn't have anything to do with that fish ukulele, but hey, you know what? Change is good, but not always desired. Hey, what do we have here? We had some artists, both earthworks and also painting, and then we had two U.S. presidents shared this day. A lot of leaders, a lot of athletes, hey, all sorts of sources for inspiration. But with that being said, and those born on this day being finished out, I would say that essentially rounds out your birthday reading, except to say your season is fall. Once again, your sign is Scorpio. If the Scorpio 1 period specifically, and your quality and elements is fixed water. And I got a video all about that. It's just a little bit too breathy to get into here. With that being said, this has been November 2nd, the day of transformation, from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Used Elfers. I have an affiliate link for this book down in the description. If you want to pick yourself up a copy and dive in further, I highly recommend it. It's a great book to throw on your coffee table or your bookshelf. It also is going to get the party started if you're looking for a way to break the ice with folks that come over to visit. For better or for worse, naturally, because some folks are going to find some things out that they don't want to hear. There's some negative Nancy entries in this thing for sure. That being said, that's not important. What is important is it's someone's birthday today, and with that being said, I just want to once again say happy birthday. That's right. And for everyone else who joined us, to celebrate the November 2nd birthday, I just want to say, hey, once again, thanks for joining. Hope you enjoyed yourself, but I also hope you come and join us for your birthday read. But lest we forget, your daily numbers. That's right. Your 2 and your 5 for a 7. Get out there and let the universe show you it's with you on your path. See, taste, touch, feel the magic. And when and if you do, you're going to see why I recommended you do as much. But even if none of that happens, you know what? At least you're out there getting your steps in, right? Everybody can use a little exercise now and then. That's right. Hey, once again, happy birthday. And take care of yourselves, all right?